hello again and welcome back to Viewpoints on the Line. We're going on to our second subject matter now, and it concerns the problem that we're seeing off the Somali coast with the pirates. So let's take a look at that story up on the screen now. Don't pay ransom to pirates. Now, it's a Somalian prime minister that's saying this because his angle is when you pay this kind of money out to these pirates, you're worsening the problem. But you see, it's twofold because you've got these merchant ships passing through, losing a lot of money in business. Lives are at risk. So these pirates so far have managed to gain millions of dollars. He's saying, do not pay that money out. What's your position on that, Paul? Okay, I'm going to start off by asking, if it was your family member on board, for example, because this opens a whole hijack issue, and we've known this has been an issue that hasn't just come up of recent times, it's just come up again because of the Somali issue with the pirates. But over time it has come up where a hijacking situation is at hand, and if you had a family member on board, whether it be a ship, whether it be a plane, would you want that ransom money to be paid out? Because you probably would under the emotions of the moment, but then again, you're empowering these kinds of people to go ahead and do it again, maybe to somebody else's family. And you might be thinking, well, you know what, at that point I'm thinking about my family. You see, all of this is valid. But the Prime Minister here is saying, don't pay out the money. I'm curious to hear how you feel on this issue when it comes to dealing with pirates and people who hijack planes and so forth. What's the right approach there, Paul, in your opinion?
Bang, bang, bang. That's
I think you might have a lot of company there, to be honest.
Yeah,
not everybody, but you got quite a bit of company there.
Yeah, the right approach to anybody who points a gun in your face and says, give me your money, is to reach into your pocket and give them a couple bullets of lead. These, if anyone were to spend money, it wouldn't be, this is a perfect, Mel Gibson payback situation. If anybody's going to be spending money because, they don't want to go there and police it themselves, then give them the money, offer the money out to people who will go out and sink these ships, period.
Yes.
But not taxpayer money. Preferably the people who are being attacked are the ones who should be spending their own money to defend their own vessels. But
what about the hostages? What do you do about people in this particular predicament?
Well, there is some talk about I think in these situations the hostages are often brought on shore. Mm-hmm. They're fed spaghetti, they're fed, they're fed well and all this kind of stuff.
They're safe.
Yeah, they're safe. But I think to prevent the hostage taking in the first place, it's both an on land and at sea.
You should never give in, you're saying. Never give in.
No, I don't think you ever give in.
There was another situation, if you remember, and this was in the paper sometime last week, or maybe even the week before, where Canada and the French chased down these bums. And unfortunately, when they caught them, they disarmed them. There was this picture captioned of these pirates standing there with their hands up. But they had to release them because, and you wonder, well, why would they release them? But I suppose you can deduce from this the logical aspect that it's under international law that unless they attack you first, and this came out afterward, you're not allowed to take these people and detain them. They have to do something first. You think it's time that we come up with some mechanism to deal with this kind of tragedy in some cases?
There is something to be said for, you'd have to go by the evidence that's available to you at the time. If it looks as though they're about to attack, well, then I think fair game. Go ahead and prevent the attack.
Well, they're armed and they're coming at you. I mean,
right.
We know what they're after.
Yeah. However, there's also this counter story that's being, somehow misapplied. That,
yes.
There's this dumping going on by Mafia.
Let's put that up on our screen now if we can, and that's a supplementary article that we've prepared for you in defense of pirates. Now, this guy is an environmentalist, and he said, look, why are we making a big issue about the pirates when dumping and overfishing has caused, indirectly, at least about 300 deaths, whereas the pirates taking control of these merchant ships, yes, there have been some deaths, but nothing in comparison to the 300. Now, I have an issue with that kind of a comparison because you can say, well, if you happen to live in the GTA or you happen to live, let's say, in Hamilton where Stelco and Dofasco is in operation, deaths associated with that through lung disease, cancer, breathing problems, heart disease, how many deaths were attributed to that compared to murders that you find at large in the street? So I cannot understand why anybody with any brain would make that kind of a comparison, and that's my little
I just don't think
point here.
I don't think an abacus.
Can't be normal.
I don't think an abacus has anything to do with morality. I don't care how many beads you put on one issue and how many beads you put on the other. Two evils don't make a good.
No, no.
Right?
But don't compare them.
Right. But I think, though, if in fact, as he's kind of suggesting falsely, people are taking to boats to protect the shoreline from overfishing, fishing in waters that are the property of locals, or to prevent dumping of toxic chemicals. Hey, fair game.
Pirates have always done these things, though, and I think he's looking at a cause here. But pirates have always plundered people. It's
oh, sure, but if what they're doing is not plundering, but rather defending the country from
different
dumpers,
story.
Then I don't think anybody should be shooting them. In fact, if anything, they should be shooting the Mafia, who are allegedly dropping.
Did you notice, though, that this particular guy did not mention the Islamic insurgency that's taking place in Somalia, where over 1 million is displaced and thousands have been killed? He doesn't mention that. He only mentions the 300 that perhaps died as a result of dumping and overfishing, blaming the West from that point of view.
Yeah, this region, as many people know, is the kind of nexus point in a global set of events and dynamics. And in that particular region, the strongest kind of mover is our neighbor to the south. The American military has strong presence there, and we understand why to some degree. But I did find an article here about their base in Djibouti, which is a small country adjacent to Somalia, and on the the Gulf of Hormuz, or in that area near the Red Sea, and America has been launching a kind of a military agenda from a number of bases around there. Of course, we know about Iraq, and we know about Afghanistan. And speaking of Afghanistan, what this Prime Minister was saying reminded me very much of what has been going on in Afghanistan, where our armed forces are presently, in that there's a belief by the local authorities that the solutions must be local, and that they need the money to be able to implement solutions at that level, so that we, at this end, don't have to deal with them in the same way. So it's a kind of dimensional set of problems that involve the French colonial
Do you buy
power.
this guy's argument, though, in defense of pirates? Do you buy that argument?
Well, I don't buy any argument in defense of any kind of
yes,
violence.
And I agree there.
Myself,
yes.
Whether it's American violence there, or French, or Canadian, or Yemeni, or Saudi Arabian. I mean, I don't care. I just don't particularly agree with violence. I've seen too much of it.
Okay, now what do we do about those pirates? Let's go out of Mike on line 4. Hi, Mike. You're on the line.
Christine, thanks for taking my call. What I think is that you'd have a lot less abductions, a lot less piracy if the insurance companies required these tankers to put an onboard security force.
You know what? That's good. What Mike said there is logical. So you wonder, well, we know that there's a problem with these Somalian pirates. Why isn't this being done?
Yeah, we might also look at the European countries, who seem to be a large part of the contributors to the pollution quotient in that region. I mean, all of these terrible wastes, from uranium to heavy metals to human waste, from kind of stuff we were talking about in the last story. That all these things are being washed up on the beaches, and they're being deposited there because there's and this is where the kind of mafia aspect comes in, as far as I can understand from what I've read. That in Europe, there's a high cost to disposing of this kind of volatile substances. Yeah, and $1,000 a ton is the going rate, and this stuff is being dumped for $2.50 a ton. That's TONNE, so it's 2.5 tons. Wow. I mean, this is a lot of toxic waste, and it's creating a serious problem. And we know that Europe is the kind of the beacon of environmentalism. And yet,
true.
This is mostly European waste, as far as I can tell, that is being deposited in Somalia, and it's so easy for a state to fail like this, when the international community does not do the right things, and when people take advantage because it's the capitalist thing to do.
No, but you're being fair in your opinion here, but no one's going to convince me that that's why the pirates are out there plundering these goods. We all know that. But you're being fair here. But I want to hear your reply to that, because I know we're seeing a little bit of a disagreement here with a capitalist. You grew up with pirates, okay? Yeah. Who are they?
Well, in the north where I came from, there are a lot of large mining corporations that, and the pirates in this case were local enterprising people who wanted gold too. So
that you went right into what I was going to talk about here. You've got the capitalist, and you've got the person that's not so capitalist.
Sure.
Okay, Paul.
Well, I think that if these quote-unquote pirates want to do something that's valuable and honest work, then their own government should protect that country by paying them as soldiers to shoot or destroy those who are dumping the garbage. And all of a sudden, the price of that garbage disposal will go skyrocketing because it turns out that 50% of the time we die when we do it. So we want to charge more than $2.50 a ton. I think if you have at sea Somali policemen, Somali Coast Guard, funded not by North American but by Somali taxpayers, then you can kill two birds with one stone. Perhaps hire some of those pilots to be police officers. The notion, though, of North America sending money so that Somalia can have a police force, that's ridiculous.
No.
That's just an encouragement to have the government itself have people go out and be pirates. Let's create a problem so that North America will give us money. I think it's a huge mistake.
It's like having a pirate fund.
There's another thing behind all of this as well, and that's oil. I mean, this is kind of one of the greatest oil resources in the world. It's coming out through the Red Sea. It's coming from Saudi Arabia. It's coming from Yemen. It's coming from these other countries. And it's the export of oil.
There's a huge trade going on there.
Well, it's the export of oil that is at the root of almost all of this hunger, famine, violence, piracy, everything. And that's why America's there to protect their interests and other countries. I mean, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that this is the real politic of the situation, that oil is driving all of this.
Paul, any feedback on this?
No. I mean, yes, I have feedback, but no, oil's not driving all of it. Corrupt philosophy is. Corrupt philosophy is doing it. And the whole idea, again, collectivism, the lack of worth of the individual, the lack of rights, and rampant Islamist, by which I mean religious government has been just killing the entire continent. It's moving like a black plague throughout the continent.
You know, we could do an entire hour on the power of oil in this world, and perhaps we'll do it on another show. Now, before we go for a break, because I want to get to this conquest fiasco. This was a disaster. Imagine being in these people's position. We'll be talking about it shortly, but Abdi on line 4, we'll go to you first. You're on the line.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I come from Somalia. I've been here for 25 years. Somalia has been without a government for at least 20 years, and Europeans have been overfishing in Somalia for over 20 years and dumping in garbage. And you personally don't believe that the pirates are doing this for fun. They can't fish anymore. Their nets have been cut by the European trawlers, and that's why they're doing. They just want to protect. And by doing that, they've been blamed to causing all kinds of things. So personally, now I think at least everybody's talking about it and they're trying to help them out, and I'm really happy to see that something's going to come up. But you should see how many garbage did they do in Europeans dumping in Somalia for 20 years at least.
Abdi, I want to thank you for your call, and I'm not going to argue with you because obviously what you said, it can be argued. I understand the plight of what you said of some of these Somalian pirates, but I will say that the world is in a situation right now where capitalism is being blamed for every evil that we see. One of the casualties of capitalism happens to be poverty. It's something that we'll always have on the face of the earth, no matter what you do. But the question then remains, so what would you rather? A radical Islamist regime, is that any better? Because you're complaining about the Europeans, not just you, but I hear this all the time, but what about the insurgency that's happening with the Islamists in Somalia, where 1 million of people are displaced and thousands are dead? What about people that are living under these horrible, oppressive regimes? We don't know, most people don't even know what's happening in a place like Cuba, where we're vacationing, having a wonderful time, but we don't know what's going on behind those iron curtains either. There are huge injustices happening in this world. Some of it is sneaking out from Durban too, but a lot of it is kept under wraps. But it's the capitalist agenda that always seems to get the blame. Yet, I don't see people from the West trying to get plane tickets to go over to these countries and live there, but I see a lot of you out there that criticize the capitalist system wanting to live in the West. And my big question to you all is why? Go ahead.
The capitalist system is the system where you have to produce to live. The collectivist system, the socialist system, is the one where you have to steal to live. And of course, if nobody's producing, under that system you eventually become impoverished. Poverty is the result not of capitalism, yes, but the result of stealing to live. And capitalism is the only thing that has gives Africa a hope. But to have capitalism, you first have to have sound morality. You have to believe in, yes, the dignity of the individual, in their rights of life, liberty, and property. And if you don't have that moral base, you don't have a chance in heck of having a capitalist system.
Yes, and we're going to have to go for a break because I'll tell you what, we're running out of time here and we've got to get to this conquest vacation story. We'll be back after this. Don't go away.
Apparently too.
Hello again, and welcome back to Viewpoints on the Line. You got a quick comment before we move over to the third?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Spanish came in and overfished the Canadian waters, but you didn't see Newfoundlanders getting out there and bombing their boats with with arms. We don't do that in a civilized country, and it shouldn't be done in Somalia either. It shouldn't be tolerated there either.
Although we took some of their trawlers, and we're reselling them.